the business model that we work in or work within is fundamentally broken.
If they put some money behind that, you're done. You increase the likelihood of never getting paid by 300%. With a buyer or the seller pays a little bit of money on the front end, number one, now they get skin in the game. I'm going to marry my mission. I'm not going to marry the model. And that's where innovation lives. Once you marry your model, you fail to innovate. If you're running one unique selling proposition, just one USP, it's pretty easy for somebody else to come into the marketplace and say, hey, we do that too, and we'll do it for less. And if they put some money behind that, you're done. So to have an uncopyable business, you need to make it an uncopyable business, period. With combining 3 unique selling performance guarantees into one USP, and then putting our brand behind it, taking what worked really well as a unique selling, but turning that into the actual brand of the company. That was the intentionality, was to make it uncopyable and win in the marketplace against head-to-head competition using one piece of it, all right? I didn't realize at the time, though, that artificial intelligence was going to come along and was basically going to do the work for the customer. And I'm like, wow, how lucky was I, to basically be able to tell the world in words who we are and what we do without having to promote it. That made it easy for artificial intelligence to be able to tell its prompters and handlers, oh, I think this is what you're looking for. You want to sell your house? Number one, I know you want certainty. I'm going to help you out here. Here's an option. The name of the company is what they do. And when you think about it, if you and I have a problem at our own home, let's say that, the air conditioner goes out, or maybe where you are, the heater goes out in wintertime. So the air goes out and it's like, oh, my air's out. So you go to Google or wherever, someplace, and you search this up. And it's like, let's say that you got this one company that's called Harry's Air Conditioning and Yard Maintenance. So he managed to get AC in there, but if it was Harry's Yard Company and we fix air conditioners when we're not doing yards, it's not that you wouldn't click on him or call him, but if he's head to head with another company that says the area's best air conditioning company, and that was the name of the company, we fix air conditioners, you're clicking on them. It's a comparison between Fast Signs, which is the number one sign franchisor in history, and Low and Signs. One's a $1 billion company, the other will never be. Home Depot and Lowe's, comparison. So many comparisons out there. Yeah, so some of these guys just got lucky because the internet didn't exist when they started their company, and there wasn't AI, so they just got fortunate, and timing was good there. I'm one of those guys, kind of got fortunate there, in that area. And then there's other people that came before you and I, like Gary Keller, and Dave Liniger, calls his company Remax. What the hell's a Remax? The customers don't know. Well, now, you can't escape it. How does a Remax agent overcome using a brand that doesn't tell the customer the problem that they solve for? And the answer is, you can overcome that problem. You're going to have to spend a lot of money and time to do it. So a lot of people are just unaware of their brand positioning issue. I would, you can follow people like Gary Vaynerchuk. You don't have to listen to me. You can go listen to people that actually work with companies and their brands, and they can tell you in their own podcast and YouTube videos and everything else, the problems they have with some over others. So anyway, so those are just some things I learned and some great nuggets along the way. But back on the income per transaction.
Let me just jump in for a sec because I got a thought. You mentioned Dave Liniger, and obviously for those that don't know, he's the founder of Remax. He wrote a book, and when I joined Remax, it was mandatory reading, and it was called Everybody Wins. And the idea or the concept is almost laughable at this point. The idea that everybody wins inside the Remax model. I mean, I know Remax broker owners across North America, and it doesn't feel like they're winning. I know Remax agents, and some are, but the vast majority are not what I would consider to be winning by my standard. And then if you were to take a look at the customer, would you suggest that every customer wins? I mean, it's hard to say given that everybody's independent. There's really no broker level support. It's effectively, that model is a give a little, get a little model that doesn't really do anything other than allow you to fly the red, white, and blue, but there's nothing there that is customer centric. So how do they make a statement like everybody wins? I'm kind of tying this back to kind of my more broad statement that the business model that we work in or work within is fundamentally broken. And Remax is not alone in this. That is the model, the big box store model. I'm not picking on it. It's almost a little apropos that they have a book called Everybody Wins, when it's just so evident that is very far from the case.
Now look, I think when Dave wrote that book, he believed that. I really do. Yeah. And it was a long time ago. It was prior to the internet, which was a great equalizer on a lot of things. As a matter of fact, I think when Dave wrote that book, or at least when he started the company, you didn't have to promote that you were at Remax. You didn't even have to mention it. There wasn't the law at that moment in time. That came around later and said, hey, if you're a real estate agent at a brokerage, now you have to promote that. Okay, so promote it. And then they come back and said, wait a second, it's too small. You got to make it more prominent. It's got to be the same size as like your name. And that's when I think it starts to become a problem. If you're associated with a brand and the customer doesn't know how that fixes their problem, you have to overcome that problem. You got to spend money to promote what you do and how you're different, how you fix their problem. You never marry your model. That's a mistake. You date it. Okay, you marry your mission and you date your model. So these businesses that, develop a model or have one and they think that's the thing and they marry that sucker, most of those people are no longer in business or they're on their way out of it. It might be good today, but if that's what you're going to marry is your model over your mission, you're going to get crushed in the marketplace. Apple would be a great example of like, I'm going to marry my mission. I'm not going to marry the model. And that's where innovation lives. Once you marry your model, you fail to innovate. So the real estate industry model is to front and load everything and get paid at the end. Right?
Yeah.
Now at the Harvard Business School, the Wharton School of Business, and many other popular top business schools in the world today, they teach cash flow models at these business schools. So it's not a secret. Your money model is to front end load everything and then hope to get paid at the end. You increase the likelihood of never getting paid by 300% or so, according to these professors. So they share that, and they actually use the real estate industry as one of those examples of a lot of people doing a lot of work and many times never getting paid for it. So there are ramifications for that. Number one, you're going to hold back on things that you think might very well make a difference in the transaction or the business or whatever, because there's always that thing that you just might not recover that investment. Yep.
You're right, especially in markets where it suddenly shifts, where we went from houses selling themselves to now, every other house is sitting on the market for 90 plus days, which you may or may not be able to keep the listing long enough for it to sell. Maybe it was only a week or 2 weeks away from selling, but they want to try something different on day 90. And lo and behold, you're out $2,000 or $3,000 of marketing. And we're willing and have been willing to always take that expense because we've been big enough to absorb it. But you're right, the average agent, when a market turns like that, will just stop spending. They'll just go defensive, which means the customer ultimately becomes underserved. They're getting an inconsistent experience depending on the cash circumstances of the agent they've hired, and they're not getting the amplification of their listing they could get. They're not getting people who have the capital to do the things that they would do if they were in their heart really truly serving the customer at the highest level. They just can't afford to. So, and you're right, that's a symptom of the money model being broken in the industry.
Yep. So inside our model, we get paid 3 times on a real estate transaction. You get paid a little bit of money up front, and get paid a much higher than average real estate commission and a services fee or transaction fee. So get paid 3 times. The money on the front end is the game changer. So what happens there is that when the buyer or the seller pays a little bit of money on the front end, number one, now they get skin in the game. They're going to be mindful of that. And what we've discovered is it shortens the sales cycle and you increase the likelihood of there being a closing, obviously. I'll give you an example. This is the real world example. So I guess it was in the early 90s, one of my mentors said, you should get paid on the front end from buyers. So I was like, okay. And we just did it. I didn't think anything of it. Didn't really think it was done a different way. I was the only person for many years that I was around in those RE/MAX circles that got paid upfront from buyers. We got like $500 or something. But we just didn't work with buyers unless they, had some skin in the game. They would sign a buyer agreement. I don't know where they went, but if they paid us a little bit of money on the front end, they didn't go anywhere. They were like, when can I go look at houses? So
it's like earn us money, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, 100%. So fast forward, this is when it really hit home for me. Fast forward to 2007, 8, and 9 in the States, the market crashed, and it crashed bad. So it was bad. I walked into my real estate office one day. It was close to end of 2007. My listing inventory, AJ, I was used to carrying about 125 active listings with my business at that time, sales team. And listings. And we'd sell about 50 homes a month or so, something like that. It's just kind of how things rolled. And my listing inventory had gone from around that number all the way up to, no joke, I remember the number exactly, it was 383 active listings, and my sales had gone from around 50 in that month, 33. So I had 33 closings in almost 400 listings. You don't have to be a genius to figure like you're losing money.
Another business.
Fast. I couldn't make payroll. Oh my God, I'm going to end up where I started. Bankrupt is what I was thinking. So
I'd had that feeling before.
Yeah, I was done. It was like, what am I going to do? So I brought my team together and I did the only thing I knew how to do. And it's like, hey, we're in trouble here. I can't make payroll. So here's what we're going to do. When you come back tomorrow with listings, don't come back without a check for $500. We just can't take on any more properties unless we get paid. I got to cover the signs. So now, fortunately, my team at that time just said, sure, no problem. And the reason was because we were already doing it on buyers. It was just the normal thing. So they came back with checks, not put them in the bank, made payroll, and that sort of thing. Now, this is where it gets really crazy. This is when you're so close to something and you just can't see it. The average days on the market at that moment in time for Metro Atlanta was over 6 months. My average days on the market was running closer to 4. A long time trying to get a home sold. About 60 days, 90 days in, I kept getting these calls from sellers that we had listed saying, Todd, we're just not getting many showings and it doesn't look like it's going to sell. I think we're just going to take it off the market and wait. On one hand, it's like, oh God, less people to take care of. At the same time, if it doesn't sell, I'm out. So once we started collecting a little bit of money up front, and it was still the same conversation that the husband and the wife were having with each other. They would still say, this sucks. Our home's not selling. Maybe we should just forget it. And the other spouse would say, you're right, but we did pay Todd $500. And then guess what happened a month later? The home sold.
House was sold.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh. So in other words, if you can't get them to the average days on the market, that's going to obviously decrease the likelihood you're going to sell them at all. So collecting a little bit of money on the front end allowed me to cover the expenses up front, the photography and the signs and the marketing costs and that sort of thing. And simultaneously, they stuck into the game and I started selling houses. And all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm selling houses. Nobody else is, hardly, around Metro Atlanta. So I doubled down on it. So then I put to work price elasticity. So the fee just kept going up, $500, $600, $800, $1,000 is where it kind of left off. My business was so good, I was able to sell it in April of 2009. So over delivering on a $15,000 or $20,000 plus commission check, yeah, you got some work to do to over deliver on that.
It actually holds your feet to the flames because when people aren't paying anything, you feel like you don't owe them anything in a certain sense. Now, I never took that approach, but it would be very easy to feel like, well, they haven't paid. I don't owe them really anything. But as soon as they pay, even if it's just $20, there's a contractual and a transaction that's taken place where, they have paid in advance for some services. And you owe them a high duty of care and a standard that didn't exist before. It's even if it's unspoken, even if it's subconscious, it changes the dynamic between the consultant.
It makes your business better. You get better at business, it makes your business better. So when I, coaching brokers, real estate agents over the years, and they would complain to me about their business being like, not as good as they wanted to be, I said, you should collect a little bit of money up front from the customers. And they were like, what? And they would look at me like I'm saying, yes, you want to make your business better, collect a little bit of money up front for the customers. Your business will get better really fast, okay? You're going to be forced into having to do a better job. Everybody's going to be on point. You're going to be more accountable. It doesn't have to be any significant amount of money either. It's just the principle of it. It changes everything. So yeah, I'm a huge proponent of that.